No heat in the house. Interesting prints of birds on the walls. Haven't gotten groceries in a week or two. Yep, I'm pretty much a starving Victorian child. Hello, I know it's been a little bit since I last did a video. I have been kind of busy with school and also just like generally feeling like a slug and not wanting to look presentable. Fortunately today I had other reasons to look presentable, so that's why I halfway look like a human and I can do a video. Before I can really do anything else, I kind of need to catch up on, what month is it now? It's October, so it's a September book wrap-up. Yep, I have to do the September book wrap-up. So let's see if I can remember what I actually read in September. Okay, the first book I read in September, I'm like pretty sure it was The Diviners by Libba Bray. It was for my book club, but we haven't discussed it yet. We're a little bit behind because everybody's so busy. But anyway, The Diviners is the first in a series, I think, of the same name, The Diviners, and it's a chonker. It's like 600 pages. I would argue that at least 100 of those pages did not strictly need to be there, but we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, aren't we? A lot of the girls in my book club had read this book when they were teenagers and they loved it and they really wanted to read it for book club. I had really not heard that much about it. I was never like a horror type person when I was a teenager, and that's kind of what this book is. And having read it, I can say it was a pretty fun read. I liked the writing. I thought there's a lot of like really lyrical, descriptive writing in here, especially the author's descriptions of New York City in the 1920s when the story is set. I thought those were really cool. Some of the more occult details were very creepy and spine-tingling. Warning, do not read this book late at night. You will have nightmares. The story is also kind of interesting too. We have a group of teenagers in New York. They're headed by a girl named Evie, who's actually from Ohio, and has this gift of like touching things that belong to other people and instantly knowing things about the person. And she uses this gift to get back at somebody who has slighted her, and it goes really, really badly, and her family sends her away. And all of these kids have like some sort of power that enables them to connect with like dead people or see the future or something like that, and they all come from fairly diverse backgrounds. This is like an early 20-teens novel, so you have a little bit of that like classic token diversity. You've got your black guy, you've got your Jewish guy, you've got your gay guy, you know how it is. Some of these people are like relatively well fleshed out within the story and some are not, and I'm assuming that in later volumes that is going to change. But now I think that this leads nicely into what I found a little lacking about the story. I talked about the main character, Evie, a little bit, and she's the kind of character I think I would have thought was really fun and sassy and forward-thinking when I was like 15. But now that I'm in my mid-20s, I'm just like, you're a brat. I think that she is supposed to be sort of a flawed character and not like your typical like perfect strong heroine, which I like understand. I appreciate Libba Bray's effort to make her a little bit unlikable. But I think that she comes off as, I think she's supposed to come off as sort of like lovable but flawed, and she's a little difficult to love at points. One example is when she's investigating all of these murders that are going on in New York City, which the villain of the story is perpetrating. And she's kind of treating it like a game and not really taking seriously the fact that these people are dying and that their families are grieving and that other people are concerned. So I was a little discomfited by that personally. Some of the other characters, I just wish that they were better fleshed out, but I know that that may happen in later books. Also, I said earlier that this book doesn't need to be as long as it is, and that is because I think a lot of story is just sort of fluff. We don't really need a lot of this information. We get a lot of info dumps about different characters in the story, about like what the villain's up to, his backstory, although it's like a very interesting and like creepy crawly one. It's just spread out in a way that I don't think makes total sense. Also, I have to say, you know that you are too old for like young adult when you start not caring at all about the love triangle. The love triangle in this book definitely felt a little bit forced, and rather than choosing one guy for Evie that I thought was like cute or like hot or whatever, I was like, you are all children? I feel like you should get your homework done first before you worry about these things. So yeah, I'm very uncool now, as you can see. So overall, I give this book 3 stars. It was a fun read. I enjoyed it. but I really think I would have enjoyed it more had I been the target demographic. Now that I'm in my 20s, I can kind of see the flaws in this work, and I feel kind of bad about that because I know I'm not the target audience, but it is what it is, you know? Next up is Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. It's a graphic novel. She drew the pictures and she also wrote the text for it. And if you are a regular on my channel, you're probably going to say, but wait, didn't you already talk about this book? And the answer is, kinda. I listened to the audiobook version of Nimona and I enjoyed it. I thought the story was good, the actors were excellent. But first of all, I couldn't see any of the art, so I didn't have that experience that was originally sort of intended for me. And secondly, my book club chose this book too, so I decided to read the version with the art in preparation for discussing it with my book club. And now that I've read the version with the art, I have to say I would raise my initial rating of this book. I think I would give it a higher rating than before. I've already talked about the book. You can watch my May wrap up if you want to hear me talk more about it. But I'll just say that the things I liked better in the art version were actually getting to see the world building at work, which was really cool because this book is sort of a mashup of like sort of steampunk elements and also medieval elements, and it has sort of a comedic bent to it, and the combination of all of that is really fun. I also think a lot of the narrative difficulties I had with the story were straightened out, especially with the ending, because the pictures help tell the story in a way that the audiobook really didn't do, although I did think it was more or less a well-done audiobook. So yeah, raising my rating to 4 stars now. I like this a lot more. Next up, we have another chonker that's sort of the theme of this month, either chonkers or like skinny bitches, I guess. The Eighth Life by Nino Haratschiwili. Did my best with the pronunciation there. It's translated by Charlotte Collins and Ruth Martin. So this book I have been seeing for a long time on lists of like really good translated books from 2020. I was intrigued by it because I heard that it was extremely long but read like a real page turner, and that's kind of the kind of book I was looking for, something I could really sink into but that wouldn't bog me down in the way a lot of long classics do. It's also the story of a family over the course of 100 years with a little bit of magical realism involved, and also the story of an entire country, Georgia. And I am a huge fan of 100 Years of Solitude, so all of that sounded really good to me, obviously. And I started reading this book, and it more or less consumed me. I could not stop reading it. You could ask any of my roommates. I was reading it while I was cooking, while I was eating dinner, while I was walking to class, while I was in the car going places with my roommates. I was constantly reading this book. I was neglecting my schoolwork. It took over my life. People often underestimate how difficult it is to create something that goes down really easy, and especially it's a book of this length, almost 1,000 pages, that is really easy to read but also very well crafted and well written. We start in the early 1900s with Stasia, who is a young woman born to a relatively wealthy Georgian family. Her father made his fortune with this special hot chocolate recipe that nobody can replicate, and it's famous throughout Georgia. Georgia is so you get like a lot of Russian Soviet Union history and how that pertains to Georgia. And Stasia becomes engaged to a young man named Simon, who goes off to fight in the war and increasingly just doesn't come back and doesn't come to see her, and she gets worried, so she travels to Russia. And this instigates an entire like 100 years worth of political turmoil mirrored and sort of illustrated within the story of this family. We go all the way to, I think, Stasia's great-great-grandchildren in the present day. One of her great-great-grandchildren, no, actually, I think one of her great-grandchildren is the narrator of the book. She's kind of a silent narrator for a lot of it. She comes in much later, though. And she's just telling the story of all of these different characters. And there are so many different ones, and they're so distinct that it's really difficult to mix them up. You have Christine, Stasia's sister, who's one of the most beautiful women in all of Georgia, and uses her wit and her wiles to influence politics. You get a dying woman in the Soviet Union and a blind piano prodigy with her eyes blown out who share the same name, and for that reason they're connected in ways that they can never really undo. We also have a character who goes on from incredible personal tragedy, which I won't spoil, but goes on to be a well-renowned folk singer abroad, and she has a very interesting story as well. Even characters who are only in the book for like a short period of time are very memorable and they leave a mark on you. The writing and the translation is also really beautiful too. Here's an example of the writing. People wanted shallow operettas. They wanted risque songs. They wanted nice, sentimental films with rural settings. They wanted to forget. They wanted to live as if there were no tomorrow and no yesterday. Now, the book is what some might call a little bit melodramatic. I think I can kind of agree with that, but that's sort of a hallmark of magical realist narrative. 100 Years of Solitude is also extremely melodramatic, and I absolutely love it. I'm a fan of melodrama, but it has to be melodrama with a purpose. Like, melodrama that doesn't respect its characters and just has bad things happen to them for the sake of it, and they're not really affected by it, that does nothing for me. Like, that's like stupid soap opera crap. Like, I'm not into that. Now, as much as I have raved about this book, you might be surprised to hear that I cannot give it a full 5 stars. I have to give it 4.5. And the reason for that is that the sort of invisible narrator, who's a member of this family about 75% of the way through the book, becomes a more full-fledged character, and as this happens, the story shifts to being more about her rather than about her family, and I just wasn't as connected to her first-person voice as I was to this sort of omniscient voice that was bringing her family to life. And the whole time I read like the last 200 pages of the book, I just wanted her family to come back. I really did not care about her. But even with that, like, come on, that's like a 9 out of 10. How can you complain? Next up, we have a fall spooky read, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I read Silvia Moreno-Garcia's book, Gods of Jade and Shadow, a few months ago, and I really, really liked it. I was looking forward to reading another book of hers, and I had heard great things about this one, and I read the whole thing in a single day. It was very difficult to put down. It's horrific, it's gross, it's engaging. I can't say I loved it, but I appreciate it for what it is. It's a story of a young girl named Noemi in 1950s Mexico. She's a wealthy socialite, and her cousin, who was a good friend of hers growing up, recently married a very wealthy man from an English family who lives in the countryside, and they have sent letters to the family saying that Catalina, the cousin, is very ill. Noemi decides to go visit her and needs a little bit of a push to do this, but she ends up visiting her to see if she's okay and realizes that there is something off about this entire place and this entire family. The thing about this book is that it is both a very detailed horror story, and it is also sort of a metaphor for the colonization of Mexico. Without giving too much away about the book, there are a lot of parallels to how people from English-speaking countries and Europe in general invaded Mexico and sort of took over the resources of the people there without really taking into account the people who already lived there. I was a Spanish major in college. I've been to Mexico, but I still learned a lot from this book. There's a lot I didn't know about Mexican history, and it's fed you in a way that doesn't feel like they're just pouring info dumps on top of you. I also enjoyed the character of Noemi. I thought she was appropriately sassy and forward-thinking, while still being realistic for the 1950s. However, I did find after finishing the book that really the best part of this story is the twists and turns and not knowing what's going to happen next. And though that is like a really engaging thing, it's exciting to be on a roller coaster. If you've already been on that roller coaster, you know where the turns are going to be, and it really has to deliver something new, if you know what I mean, in order for you to pick it up again, so I don't know that I will ever do that. I also thought that the ending was way too pat, it was too easy, I was very dissatisfied with it. So I decided to give the book 3.5 stars, which is a pretty good rating for me, but it's not a favorite, but I did really enjoy it. The last 2 books I read in September are connected to each other, and they are All's Well That Ends Well by William Shakespeare and also All's Well by Mona Awad, which is a novel that I wouldn't call it a retelling of the play. I would call it like an inspired by the play and influenced by the play. So the play, let's start with that. To be honest, I don't have too much to say about it. I did this as a buddy read with Amanda Michelle, whose channel I will link down in the description. She's very cool and she does a lot of like Shakespeare type retellings and really likes the plays, and I also love Shakespeare, so we decided to read these together. I had never read this play before, she had, and I kept having to message her and be like, what is going on? What? Where? Who? What? Granted, I probably made the wrong decision to listen to the play on audiobook. I thought that would be a little bit more interesting than just reading it, but it made it really hard to follow because the audiobook, which was from the BBC, I believe, was excellently acted. I have no complaints about the acting, but they really did nothing to narrate the story beyond the play, and so that when the visual elements of a play are taken away, you just kind of don't know what's happening at any given time. You don't know where the scenes are, you don't know, who's supposed to be talking if you don't recognize the voice. They had a few sound effects, but that was really it. So to be honest, I can't say much about the play. It's considered one of Shakespeare's problem plays. It is the structure of a comedy, but has a lot of like really serious and troubling elements to it, a la perhaps Two Gentlemen of Verona, if you know that one. The play is also more of a sort of fairy tale feel than a lot of Shakespeare's plays. It has like a weird quest, it has unrequited love, it has a mysterious illness that the main character has to cure. So the ending is a bit unsettling. I'll leave you to read it or read summaries for yourself, but let's go on to Mona Awad's novel. All's Well is a novel about pain, and as such, it is often not very comfortable to read, and it is also not pleasant. The main character, Miranda, was once a fairly successful stage actress, playing a lot of Shakespeare roles, including the main role of Helen in All's Well That Ends Well. But when she was perhaps in her early 30s, she fell off of the stage during a production and messed up her back and hips, and as a result can basically not move or sit without pain. She's seen all kinds of doctors. No one can tell her like anything that can help. A lot of people don't believe her. It has indirectly led to the loss of her career, the loss of her husband as well. And she's now a theater professor at a small liberal arts college that doesn't even have a full theater department. And the only thing that gives her joy is watching her old performances of plays back when she was young and healthy to sort of give her like a memory of what she used to be. And in All's Well, she decides that instead of staging Macbeth, which is what her students want, she's going to stage All's Well for the year, partly to relive her glory days. Now, the students are not wild about this because, like most people, they don't really enjoy the play. They would rather do Macbeth. They want to do witches and stuff. But Miranda's insisting on it, and that gets her into some trouble. And she eventually meets up with three men who say that they have an answer to all of her problems. And at first it does seem like that. But the later we progress into the story, the more we realize that it comes at a price, just like everything magical seems to. Even though I said that this is kind of an unpleasant book to read at many points, it's usually still enjoyable and still immersive because of Miranda's voice. She's very darkly funny and not always likable, in fact, more often unlikable than likable, but it's very rare that she's completely unsympathetic because her situation truly is difficult, and it's one that a lot of women with chronic pain face. Men with chronic pain as well, but I think that in the medical field, women are often not believed about their pain because it doesn't show up in the same way that men's pain would. People often don't believe women are actually having heart attacks because they don't get the same symptoms as men, for example. I also like this very slow intrusion of magical realism into this story. I won't spoil it by saying exactly what happens, but it's almost like you don't notice it's there until it's on top of you, and it's very interesting to look back and see how Mona Awad did that. It gets to the point where it's hard to tell what's real and what's fake, and that's one of my favorite things about a book, to be honest. But I'm still kind of turning over the ending in my head. I'm wondering if it, like Mexican Gothic, was also just a little bit too pat and perfect. But even so, I do appreciate the way that it was executed. Even though this book is a little bit slow at times, I did quite enjoy it. Have a few questions about the ending, so I would give it, again, 3.5 stars. I also listened to the audiobook, which was read by Sophie Amoss. I really liked her reading. I thought she captured Miranda's personality really well. And she also reads Mona Awad's other novel, which is called Bunny, so I think I will look at getting the audiobook for that too. Okay, that's all we got for September, folks. Now that we're done with that, I hope to be able to make a few other videos for you. I hope that you've enjoyed watching me in this new setting with really harsh lighting that makes me look very tired. But in any case, thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you next time And even if I don't, I guess you'll see me. Bye.